Bandwidth provided by Recursive Squirrel Interactive. Visit them on the web at recursivesquirrel.com. Episode 615, Planting the Seeds. Monday, November 30th, 2020. It's time for this week's edition of the BeanCast, a weekly discussion about the news and issues facing marketers today. I'm your host, Bob Norp. Thanks for joining us. We all know Google is an ad company with freemium services. But more and more, they seem to be abandoning the freemium model in favor of subscription revenue. Obviously, diversification is a good idea, but what are the broader implications? Tonight, we'll discuss. Also, the problem with Instagram's makeover, where Twitch fails advertisers, cannabis marketing's interstate problem, plus this week's Fair, Fail, Foul. That's the lineup. Let's meet tonight's panel. Thanks for joining us for this week's BeanCast. I'm Bob Norp, and with me on the panel for this evening, we start with the founder and creative director at legendary experiential agency Campfire, Mr. Mike Manello. Mike, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure. Now, next up, we have the co-host of Across the Pond Marketing Transformed, and managing partner at CI Squared, Mr. Sam Mani. Sam, what's going on with you?
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me back. Super excited to be here again and ready for an amiable, affable, and passive evening with you all.
Oh, so delightful.
Very British today. I'm going to be extra British today.
Yes, extra. And finally, from the influential media analysis firm TV Rev, co-founder and lead analyst, Mr. Alan Walk. Alan, it's been so long. Thank you for coming back.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure, man. It definitely has been too long. I even had to think, we're still using Skype here.
I'm the last holdout on Skype, I'm telling you. I'm the last holdout on Skype, but I continue to use it. It continues to work for me. Good audio. Well, I'm going to move right into the topics because we have a big one to cover, a real meaty one to cover up front. There's little doubt when we think about Google about whether or not it's an advertising company. I mean, it's clearly an advertising company, but it's just as clear that they are evolving that perception right now with an ever-increasing focus on subscription revenue. Now, the latest shift is the ending of the unlimited free photo and video storage with the presumable entry into the subscription element of doing the same thing. Sam, the model at Google has always been to provide lots of free services and tools, increase internet usage. That's the reason they do the tools. They always felt that if people use the internet more, they make more money. And once they get people using the internet, they sell ads against the resulting traffic. Now, can this model survive, though, with a shrinking pool of free tools? What do you think about the movement towards subscription? Is it a real trend, or is this just piecemeal items that aren't making money or aren't involved just kind of going to subscription model? What do you think is happening at Google?
Well, repeat after me. If it's for free, then my data is their profit. That's the initial going in piece. And clearly, they're not making enough money from my data or the advertising. So their own numbers say that this shift to charging people and making it less all you can eat, removing the all you can eat buffet, is going to generate within the next couple of years almost $2 billion in revenue. That's a huge margin upside for years to come. And so if I'm a raging capitalist, which last time I checked, Alphabet were raging capitalists, then this was an inevitable that's going to happen. And the move to subscription, I was before I was coming on the show, I was just making a note of everything I subscribe to. So that's Amazon, that's Apple, that's, I think I'm already Google One, Spotify, Tidal, Netflix, Microsoft as well. Microsoft 365 have got me. So all of these companies have cottoned on, and this is just an inevitable move to make huge amounts of money, which was gonna have to happen. As I was researching this and reading around, they estimated that 80% of their users won't hit their storage limits for 3 years. Well, that's great. That means after 3 years they will hit their limits. So that's like a gravy train that's gonna keep running and running and running. And so the free tools are there, but why would you? They're not a non-for-profit. They are a for-profit, and they are a global company. And how they're going to grow? If the mix of advertising is shrinking, I think it's going down from around 90% a few years ago to 80%, then this is a revenue stream that all their competitors are playing at. And if they don't get in first,
I gotta stop us right there, because one of the numbers you quoted, it kind of tripped me up as well when they said that it's shrunk. The percentage of the revenue has shrunk to 80%. But when you look at the raw numbers, advertising revenue is up. I mean, they're making more money from advertising overall. And the other problem that I have with the argument that you made, not to pile on here, but it's just like that idea that somehow that advertising is going away. Let me back up a second. When you say that they're going into subscription and you point to all the other players out there that are using subscription models as the way to go forward, none of those other players that you mentioned are also advertising hubs. Like Microsoft is not an advertising hub. They're making money off of subscriptions. They're making money off of software. It seems like Google going into this makes sense for growing the market, but what does it say for the health of advertising long term on the platform? Is advertising here to stay? Is this really truly just about growth? And can they maintain that dominance in advertising without the free products, without those free software items, those free services that are increasing usage of the internet and keeping people coming to the Google platform, and thus giving advertisers a lot of reason to go back to Google to advertise with them?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it's a little bit simpler than that, Bob. The amount that they're charging for these things is pretty minimal, so it's not going to decrease the amount of internet use. But what do they get when you have a subscription? Your credit card number, which they can then tie back to their advertising and prove how effective it is, and also track you in other ways, because they now have your credit card number, even if you're only paying them $2 a month or whatever for extra photo storage.
That's an interesting proposition, and it fits in with something we covered last week, that Google is moving more into banking and involved with that type of thing, bringing transactional data into the mix. But haven't they already been bringing transactional data into the mix? I mean, you've got lots of data sources dealing with transactions. I mean, Equifax and Experian and the other big data vendors. I mean, can't they overlay that data on top of that already? And isn't that even more effective because it gives a wider swath of humanity in the transactions that are going on?
I just think, Bob, that we're perhaps overcomplicating it. If I make you subscribe to something, and as we just said, it's maybe it's not high enough to kind of make you think about it. It's one of those things that is just going to be a recurring revenue stream. You're going to sign up, you're going to pay your $10 or whatever it is a month, and you're just going to, chalk it off to experience. And that just passive income is a huge win for them. And in terms of behavioral economics, behavioral science, it's like a 101. Get me to sign up. Not so extreme that I have to think about it, and now you've got me forever. So I don't think it's a conflict. I just think it's low-hanging fruit. They haven't done it for quite a while, and it surprises me. And if you look at some of the other products, they could probably do a better job of bundling. But for me, I just think it's as simple as, well, we've got them, we're not charging them, we can charge them, and we won't lose them. Let's make the money, and on we go. And I think they're starting to whine about how much data is being uploaded and how much it's costing to store and keep and invest in that. So there is an economic argument, but ultimately monetize it and it's high margin. So for me, it's as simple as making more money in a way with locked-in consumers. I don't despise them. I applaud them because I'm going to pay because I'm locked in now.
I think there's another thing happening here, and it's probably not as compelling a reason for this, and maybe it's why they're just starting with the photos opportunity. But it feels like culturally, obviously, there's a trend that's where people are starting to really understand algorithms and data security and these things. And anecdotally, right, my 18-year-old, who's been an avid user of all these tools, recently watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix and came right out of that deleting all her social media apps from her phone. She still has the accounts, but she's deleted the apps from her phone, and she's not using them nearly as much as she was. And I'm not saying this is a trend, but I feel like the activists and then companies like Apple doing what they're doing with their ecosystem, and then you have governments. Everybody's doing a much better job of explaining the issues surrounding a company that makes money entirely off data and algorithms. And I suspect they're dipping the toe in the water. In worst case scenario, they're just creating a premium product.
Let me ask this about this. I mean, everybody brings up really good points about, the importance of data and the importance of that being the most valuable asset to them. My question though is broader about all the different free services that they have. I mean, they had a very good reason for shutting down the free storage portion of the photo sharing or the photo uploading service. I mean, they never intended for it to become such a vast amount of data being uploaded, and they just can't maintain it. That's a really logical reason for shutting that down. But what about things like Gmail? I mean, Gmail does have a subscription layer. I mean, you can pay for more data and more storage, but it's essentially a free service. Will we see all the free services fall eventually at Google? And what does that do to the model? Is that a scenario that you can see happening over at the alphabet companies?
No, I think they will keep Gmail free because it's sort of the gateway drug, if you will. You come in through your free Gmail account, and they can just try and upsell you on everything else. And I mean, I forget who had made the point earlier, but I pay Apple. I think it's $2 a month for extra iCloud storage, and the only way I'm aware of it is they send me a receipt. It's $24 a year. It's not a big deal. I think Google will probably keep prices that low initially to be the sort of thing where people don't even notice it. And and they're also thinking photos. That's something people aren't going to want to get rid of, right? They want all their memories and all that. There's much more of an emotional factor to that than telling them they can't store, 12-year-old files or something. So I think they will keep something free as a sort of gateway drug.
Bob, I agree. I think they are going to keep a lot of it free. But the truth is that, we use Google. We use Google Apps in our business, mm-hmm. and we're starting to get some clients, more than two, telling us that they're explicitly banning us from using those Google products due to privacy and data issues of their own data.
So, and that's interesting. I've always wondered about how safe the data was in that type of scenario where the company is paying for an executive or whatever the premium level of service is for a company. Are they mining that data as well, or is there any protection? I mean, what does the user agreement say? Have you ever looked into it to find out?
I'm assuming they are, Bob. I've just decided because I think every company that I've ever been with have just sent me a new terms of service update, and I'm assuming I'm giving up more rights, and they're going to do more stuff. And whenever I use Google, it's seamless. So when I especially if I'm using Google Maps and Gmail, it basically finishes off my email and tells me my prescription's ready at the pharmacy and go and pick it. So it's so seamless now. We've had to, I think, accept some of these things. And there's a good point about, well, what's the security and what's the company or the business play? I think people are more conscious, but the challenge is, especially in the more virtual remote world, what these tools and what these platforms give you is fast, easy collaboration. And the more you use firewalls and different platforms, it slows things down, and it constrains innovation, it constrains collaboration, it constrains productivity. So there's always a tension there. But going back to the point, I feel that what's going to happen more, I think, in this whole space is actually the complaints that other providers are saying, look, we told you 5 years ago they're going to come and give it for free, get it on the market and start monetizing it and charging. So the Flickrs of this world are complaining. And I think the legislators are going to jump in, because I think Google sort of in the EU, I'm sure within 12 months, the EU are going to pass some legislation that's going to slap their hands over doing this anyway. So that is the counterpoint in terms of, hey, market competitiveness, and also legislators getting them either on the privacy security aspect or just the monopoly aspect in order to try and sort of constrain or control them. But ultimately, I don't know why Gmail's free and Google Maps are free.
That's an interesting premise. I mean, that there's going to be regulation as a result of these subscriptions. I would argue that it could potentially be the opposite, right? I mean, if you're forcing your customers to pay for the services, you're going to see a drop off on usage, and it's going to give the opportunity for more competitors to come into the marketplace and actually effectively compete, right? I mean, isn't that what happens when you start charging for stuff?
In theory, but there's already, I think, I was reading around this, there's a group called 165. They've called for swift EU antitrust action, and because of they're arguing, this is a conglomerate of companies. I think Yelp and all these other companies come together saying no matter what they do, it's anti-competitive, and we need to the legislators need to step in. So there is an element of we're charging you, so we're being fair, but ultimately, if you've got 50, 60 or whatever it is the market share is, then you've got a dominant market position, which in other industries would be broken up. So they are going to create other problems, I believe, by actually charging people, because now they're basically, it is a profit center, so it's not a loss leader, it's not a freebie. So again, I'm not in the legislative arena, easy for me to say, but I do believe there's going to have to be something to counterbalance this and argue the counterpoint. Hey, but ultimately, sign me up. I'm on board with Google. I mean, I love the product. I think the proposition's great. So I'm arguing the contrarian ultimately. But as a consumer, as I was reading this darn article, I created a photo book and paid them $20 for a bunch of photos anyway. So it's like, damn you, Google, you got more of my money. So, and as an honest response. So in all honesty, I just think as from a pure consumer perspective, this is I don't see the downside from my side.
What about from an advertiser perspective? I mean, we've talked a lot about the impact on consumers and what its ultimate meaning is for the company. But what about for advertisers? Does this improve my relationship with Google? Do I want to run more ads with them as an advertiser, as an agency, as a media buyer? Is Google improved in any way by turning their services into subscriptions, or do I become a skeptic as to the future of how to work with this company? Or am I narrowing down my options with this company down to just search? I mean, what do you think, guys?
It depends on what they do with the credit card data, right? If they're able to give me one-to-one matchups, like this person saw this ad and then used their credit card to buy your product, that's, then I'm much happier than I was before they started to do this.
Very true. That's true. Anybody else have a counter opinion, or everybody kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to do much to scare advertisers away.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Bob. I was trying to give room for other people. I was being very British and polite there. But ultimately, okay. It's like Google have won. Well, they've already won the battle. They've won all the wars. So yeah, what your advertiser is going to say? No, darn it, I'm going to go and use Bing because of this treacherous behavior by Google. I don't see it changing anything. As I keep arguing, I see it as a way to monetize an asset which is a drain on the P&L right now, and just make more money without jeopardizing other revenue streams. I don't see how this negatively impacts advertising at all, really. I think from a consumer play, there's a huge win, and possibly a B2B play. But my only problem is that all these companies probably need some branding help, so you know who to reach out to, because it's Google one, you got Apple one. All the services are kind of converging in terms of lack of differentiation. So ultimately, someone's going to have to do a better branding job to explain to me, because I think I've got about 25 different Google apps, and I don't know how it all links to Home and Maps and all of this stuff. So help me understand and navigate your overall ecosystem. I think who wins that battle is probably going to be the next frontier of making things seamless for business and for consumers.
Well, this is fascinating. I know that customer experience and dealing with all these different tools is definitely going to come into play over the next few years. But I want to move on. I want to talk about another customer experience problem that a lot of people are facing right now. As usual, a Facebook company changed its user interface and everyone hates it. But this time, the more considered criticism out there about the Instagram change is that there are some practical reasons to complain. They've essentially focused all the changes on Instagram's app on highlighting their money-making tools and de-emphasizing user-focused tools like posting and interactions in favor of trying to focus on things like Reels and the other types of platforms that are more about viewership and consumerism, consuming the products, consuming the content. So, Mike, most interface updates, even when they're poorly implemented, are ultimately about improving user experience. That's why you make a change to a user interface. So can there be a case made that this was the intention here, or is this a total misstep on their part? What's your take on your personal take on the changes made to the Instagram app, and then also the broader understanding of whether or not this is good for the app long term?
Well, yeah, and I think you can't make a case that the intention here was user experience. I mean, you look at the tweet from Adam Mosseri himself. You know, in his tweet, he said, "This week we added tabs for Reels and Shop, given how important video and shopping are to Instagram." Yeah, he didn't say, given how important video and shopping are to our users.
I missed that. That's great. That's so awesome. What a total gaffe.
So, yeah. I mean, you know, it's obviously they've upset most of their users, and so on that level, it's a misstep. But I'm not sure if we're going to know if it's bad for their business. For a while now. It makes their priorities clear, right? They're clearly looking to become a major shopping mall influencer ecosystem. And I think that what this is showing is that they care more about the ways that people interact with the influencers in commerce than with each other. I don't know what kind of data they're looking at. It's possible that they feel like the old use of Instagram of people sharing photos and moments is not as profitable as people who hop on and follow their influencers and their celebrities. But I think in many ways, this is almost the opposite of Google's changes to their photo service, in that Instagram here is going all in on advertising, and there's a tension between online advertising and customer-centric services that's just fraught with challenges. And here it is. You know, you can't claim to be customer-centric, and yet you have to tweak all of your platforms to work for advertising. It's one or the other.
What do you think, Sam? I mean, do you agree with that? I mean, is there any justification to these changes that make it something that will make the platform more acceptable to a majority of the users? Or is this move away from actual photo sharing and interaction and really, quite frankly, social media as in favor of just being a plain old media platform? Is that a wise move for them, or is that a misstep?
I feel like a broken record, because it's all about making more money and growing. So at least they were shameless about it. This is a good move for Instagram. Screw the users. So my premise on most
but does it screw the users? And that's the thing.
Well, okay, actually, you know, it depends on who's the audience you're trying to engage with, because, you know, I guess I'm not an advertiser for the most part on Insta. I use it for the social and the entertainment and the content play. So from a consumer perspective, I always hold off as long as possible, resisting every single update on any single app, because I know they're going to add more advertising stuff. They're going to make the ad units bigger. They're going to have pre-roll, auto-roll, multi-roll, ads and make them unskippable. So they're going to make the experience worse for me and better for advertisers in every single app update, be it a LinkedIn, be it Instagram, be it whatever platform. So I think as a consumer, you've become used to that. But equally, conversely, from the advertiser perspective, you love that. That's what you want. And so I don't see this formula changing, especially if we know their parent company and how they think about it. And ultimately, if you think about the last 12 months, COVID and the environment we're in, small businesses coming on board, all the signals are saying, do this, do this, do this, do more of this, because it's a push for market share. So ultimately, it's an advertising platform. 10 years ago, Insta was fun. It was different. Same with Twitter and all these other platforms, right? These social platforms was more user participant centric than it was advertiser friendly. And that has shifted over time. And Insta's got a magic formula with video and with ads. As I was thinking about my ad exposures on Insta, I went in to try and change things, and basically it will tell you what you've interacted with, but you can't change that. So ultimately, they're saying you clicked on this, whether you butt clicked or not. That means you're going to get more of this crap. And every time I put inappropriate or not relevant, I do not believe it changes anything on the algorithm. I think it serves me up more and more and more. So we have to accept it. And the challenge is there going to be innovation in the marketplace from other products to come up to meet the need of the social sort of driven users who are going to want more of the old style. But clearly, I can't see this shift changing. It makes me sad from a consumer perspective. But if I'm a brand, I'm loving it, because now I've got more opportunity to reach my audiences. And as a marketer, I can see it, but I don't like it, because I have a personal dissonance with the changes and my personal experience versus what your brand is trying to achieve.
You know, something that's interesting about this, and I'm going to go to Alan with this question, because I think you've got the background here to address this issue. There's something about both stories and reels that's more of a sit back audience. You know, that lean forward audience is the one that's searching, looking for something, whereas the lean back audience is more like television. And I've seen that cultivation going on a lot of these platforms, trying to cultivate a more TV-like behavior, trying to get people to just let the content come at them, because that makes for a better ad vehicle. Do you see that as being the real trend on Instagram and most of the other platforms that are moving in this direction? And does it really represent an evolution in the way that we consume media to be more like television?
Well, I mean, if you look at Instagram, what's happening is they're scared beepless about the fact that TikTok is stealing their audience and Snapchat not far behind them.
But they got a billion users coming. They're going to hit a billion users.
The Instagram audience is aging. It was, they used to have the millennials. Their millennials are getting older, and the new generation is, still using Instagram, but they've really taken to TikTok and Snapchat, and TikTok in particular is a video platform. So they're thinking, especially with Reels, like, okay, how do we combat this? And they've been trying to make, Instagram video happen for a while without a whole lot of success. In terms of the shopping experience, they've had a very positive feedback with that. People like the ads that they get on Instagram, because it's a lot of DTC companies, direct to consumer, and it's a lot of kind of sort of fun. So somebody once described it to me, which I thought was very accurate, as sort of feeling like you're looking through one of those ads in in the airline magazines back in the day. That there's all these new products you never heard of.
That's exactly what the Instagram experience is like. It's a lot like the Sky Mall.
Right. Exactly. Thank you. I couldn't think of the name of it, but yes, exactly. And and that's sort of what they're going for. Now, what's interesting is that a lot, as television has changed, and a lot of the OTT/CTV, the streaming stuff has taken off, and it allows for more addressable. You see a lot of the companies that initially started off advertising on Instagram are moving over to television now, because they've sort of hit everybody on Instagram that they can. They already have the video that they made for Instagram, so it's easy enough for them to convert it to a TV commercial, and the rates are kind of low enough, and the audiences that they can reach, it gets them the same sort of targeting. But I think in this case, what they are reacting to more is, is sort of the newer platforms, and how do we kind of make ourselves still attractive. And they just assume that users, as with Facebook, that users are so tied in already that they can mess with them a lot, and they're not going to give it up.
There's one thing that bothers me. I'm going to throw out a 301 class terminology here. I'm not sure if are you all familiar with the Forrester technographics model? Have you heard?
I am now, Bob. I did my research. Thank you.
Well, the Forrester technographics model was developed for describing YouTube way back in the day. I think it was 2008 that it first came out. And they looked at YouTube and the way people both shared content and consumed content. And at the top level, 20% of people would share content, and the other 80% of people who were coming to the platform were lowering levels of engagement. They were basically just consumers, either actively commenting or actively participating in the conversation, or just consuming, but they were the consumers. So if only 20% of the audience in this model is held up on every social media platform, I mean, like 20% are active sharers, constantly sharing. The rest of us are just consumers. If that's the case, does that bear even more reason, Sam, for them to go after this type of model? I mean, because it's just like putting the share button and putting the search button for understanding what your like button. Your like button, is that what it's called? I mean, it's just like the button that you go and look at your own likes, and the button that you go to post your own content. I mean, to hiding those buttons, it doesn't make sense for them to put them at the top where it's inconvenient to reach for them if they're really going after that 80% of the audience.
Well, if you make shopping more prevalent, guess what's going to happen? And so for me, it's an ad platform that is making it easier for you to buy. And they're walking the fine line of ensuring that the creators and sharers can still participate to continue those eyeballs, to continue to bring the audiences. So you're kind of trying to intrude as much as possible without pissing people off so much that they're going to leave. And you're walking a fine line. And I think there's other avenues for them. So Dave Chappelle, he dropped a video, 18-minute video, which I watched in portrait, I think, or did I turn my phone to landscape? The other day, like 5-6 days ago, it's got 6 million views. And he was telling the story of how people shouldn't watch his show because he's not getting paid. But I'm thinking, so there is an interesting play where original content that is longer form is now captivating me. So I'm thinking, I wish I could, watch that on my iPad or project or share it to my TV and engage in other ways. But I think they're walking a line. But ultimately, the line is to monetize and make more money. And I can't see it going backwards. And equally, if only 20% if only 80% of people are just lurkers and not, so you're not, and as long as if that gets down to 78%, but you've increased revenue, I think there's no issue there. And ultimately, what's the alternative? Is the alternative truly Snapchat? Is it truly TikTok? I don't know if that's the case. So I think I see the sort of the business angle, business play. And there is no real alternative for your consumers, right? So for the 20%, what alternative do they have other than to play with Instagram? So I think we're just gonna have to suck it up from my side.
And nobody feels like this move of making it a little bit more difficult to post content is going to piss off the 20% who drive most of the revenue. I mean, that's the main concern I have with this. I mean, if
it does, Zuckerberg will just look really morose and say, "We know we have to try it and do better."
Listen, they'll figure it out. I think if it's messing with your money, messing with your business, you'll figure it out. So I don't think this is as I don't believe it's as large enough to to deplete from the current business model. It's just, as I say, if you go back 5-7 years on what Instagram used to be and used to do, I wish for those days, and I'm going to hang on until the app stops working before I upgrade, like I do most times. But ultimately, I think they're going to win this. They're going to win this battle, and we're going to have to just shift behavior and suck it up.
Yeah, I agree with Sam. I do wish that it would go back to the old Instagram. But I wish that before when they introduced stories, which kind of changed the feed in many ways. And I think that the truth is where are these influencers going to go?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the fundamental problem with building your revenue stream on the back of a platform that you don't own. You're at the mercy of the platform at all times.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yep.
Well, just to prove that video is in turmoil everywhere, Amazon-owned Twitch also has some problems. Gaming-related advertising has obviously been really hot. And often when we're discussing this space, Twitch has consistently risen to the top in terms of the player that you want to be on most when you're trying to reach to gamers. But is it really a good buy? Alan, Adweek offered up a critique this past week that seemed to suggest that everything from oversaturation to this marketplace, they're talking about putting ads on content that isn't even associated with being shared with. I mean, they're doing all kinds of. They're thinking about putting ads on content that's not doing revenue sharing, is what I was trying to say. And there's also the brand safety issue that ads can just show up in content, and then during that content, someone could say something bad about your brand, and you have no control over it because it's all live streaming. What do you think about the current situation with the platform and also the future of the platform? Is Twitch still going to be a good buy for reaching gamers, or are these kind of problems that are surfacing right now, are they going to cause long-lasting troubles for the company going forward?
Yeah, the funny thing about that article, Bob, was that it wasn't actually written by an Adweek reporter. It was written by a guy, it was a guest post by a guy who works for a mobile ad agency.
True.
He has a very vested interest in sowing doubt about
the ugly truth about most of the business press out there. It's written by people who are guest posters, but that's beside the point. It's true. It's very true. And we got to be skeptical.
This was an instance where, like, I was like, holy, like, Jesus, like he has quite the vested interest, and he even actually swung. He wasn't even trying to hide it. Like, he swung. That was like his last point was, and that's why you should you should advertise on mobile. So, but to his point, I mean, Twitch for the gamer community. Twitch is it, and it's the thing that a lot of advertisers don't seem to realize. Well, there's two things. One is that not all Gen Zs and millennials are gamers, right? It is a very distinct subculture within that demographic, but for those people,
and it spans a lot of age ranges too. I mean, it's just like you're absolutely right. It goes all the way from Gen Z up to my age into the 50s, and usually not much older than that. But yeah, it's a wide age gap when you're talking about this audience. So it's really hard to reach, and Twitch does offer a unique access to that particular audience.
And they're avid. I mean, they spend a lot of time on there. It's not, it's not as soon as we just talking about Instagram, it's not like Instagram where you've got your 80% who like go, oh, is anything new today? Bing, 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 I'm out. Like, they're on there for hours. And in that case, and in that case, it's a really good way to reach them if that's who you're trying to reach. I think a lot of the brands that he mentioned are, probably don't belong on there, or it depends how much they're paying. The other thing is that since Twitch is owned by Amazon, I mean, Amazon knows everything about its consumers, right? They know all of their spending and buying habits, and you've given them access to that data. So anything that you put on Twitch, you're quite, Amazon can tell you, well, this is who saw it, and this is what they bought, and this is what they bought in the past, and these are the other products they like. So the targeting on that is phenomenal. So I think that if you're looking to reach that specific gamer audience, which that it's great. I don't think the brand safety issues are that tremendous because for most of the brands that are on there, unless they're directly related to gaming, chances are no one's going to say, it's the worst that'll happen.
That's not true. I mean, the example that he gave was a really legitimate one. I mean, if Logitech is advertising on the platform and someone comes on and says, I hate Logitech products, that's something that actively does happen. I mean, people are very particular about the types of tools that they use when they're talking about gaming.
Right. So my point was that if you're Logitech, then think twice. But if you're BMW, which was one of the other products that was mentioned in the article, like, I'd say chances are pretty slim that the guy's going to go, BMW sucks, out of nowhere, because he's playing, unless there's somehow a BMW in the game, like it's, so yes, if you make products that are sort of interest to gamers or somehow gamers use, then yes, you may consider brand safety issues and all that. But for most of the other brands, it's not really going to be an issue. And it's certainly nowhere near what you have on YouTube, where chances that you'll be put up against a white nationalist video or some other crap like that, are much higher.
Well, I disagree. I think the brand safety thing, the last 12, 18 months, 24 months, I think brands have now been much more vocal because they are asserting their brand equity and saying, hey, you need to fix this. And if I actually don't know how many people realize that Amazon own Twitch, for example. So Amazon are no better. And so to be propagators of platforms which have legal challenges, brand safety issues, they're going to have to fix it. And as I was researching this, there's you're right, Bob. The audience for this is broader than gamers. You had AOC, I think, on the other day, the politician from New York who raised $200,000 when I think she was playing Among Us and bringing an audience. Travis Scott brought 13 million people, and so there are huge audiences and huge opportunities. But when it comes to brand safety, when you're getting people kicked off the platform for making racist comments or offensive comments, you've got to find a way to address that sooner rather than later. And for a company like Amazon, they have no excuse to not be part of the solution. And otherwise, again, legislators and court cases are going to happen. And as I was researching more and more about this, the huge issue they have is with the music industry and streaming and not actually paying the royalties to the industry bodies and the musicians. And all of a sudden, people having to take down content, otherwise they're going to be kicked off. And people, I have some empathy with the content producers are saying, hey, my life's works. I've been on this platform 5 years. My life's work's gone because I was going to get sued. The sad thing is they should have known that. They should have known that from the outset, that you can't use other people's music unlicensed without paying for it. And equally, for Twitch to allow this to happen, they're going to have to tighten up a lot of these things. So from just the oversight and just best practices, they're going to have to fix this in order to be legit and also to avoid class action. Because if the music industry goes to court and actually wins, they're going to have to pay billions of dollars in settlements for the bad behavior that's been going on. So I think there is going to have to be a shift to tighten things up, which will clean up the marketplace, that ultimately will make things more approachable for brands. But equally, I don't think that a lot of legacy brands really don't know this area. They don't know how to play, and they're going to be missing out on opportunities to participate while all of this noise is in the system. But I can see it getting cleaned up a lot faster than we can imagine.
I do. I mean, I understand that, and I do think they have to spend time cleaning it up. But I think I side a little bit more with Alan on this one with regards to brand safety. I mean, everyone knows these are live streams. They have chat windows. If somebody says Logitech products suck, there's a more than 90% chance that a bunch of people in the chat are going to go, they're my favorite, and they'll start a conversation about Logitech products that ultimately will be probably better for the brand.
That's my concern. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm wondering how much of an issue really is brand safety. I mean, I think brand safety is overwrought because we use these technicolor examples of a beheading video and say that that's going on and we need to keep that from being associated with our brand. That's a real serious issue. But most of the time when you're talking about brand safety, it's just someone saying something bad about your product, which is really not that terrible of a thing to happen.
No,
Right,
it's not.
right.
Not in a social platform. I mean, the same thing. You say the same thing about promoted tweets on Twitter. People always respond to those things negatively. I mean, it's just part of the conversation. But I think if you're a brand and you're advertising on social, obviously you've got to be prepared for your ad to possibly appear against something horrible, and you need to be ready to come out and denounce it and pull your ads from that streamer. And done. Most people are going to go, yeah, that was the streamer's fault for saying that. They're not going to blame the brand, especially if the brand goes ahead and pulls the ads and says, we're not going to advertise on that anymore. But I think what's interesting here about Twitch is that I agree. Right now it is gamer focused, but there's a lot of experimentation on the platform for other forms of content. Yes. And while it hasn't taken off to quite the extreme level that the gaming has, it's there and it's growing. And I think that what this means is that Twitch is pretty well positioned, I think, to take the more long form video, right? Like the 18-minute video on Instagram, which is a pain to watch, and you're only going to watch it if it's a brilliant comedian who's performing it, versus, what the kinds of sit that lean back and watch that happens on Twitch. I think Twitch is interestingly placed to become more than just gamer content. And I think they're slowly fostering that side of the business.
Yeah, I've heard that too, Mike, that there's a lot of experimentation going on with interactivity and things like that people feel have broader uses than just gaming.
Well, good points all. I got to move on, though. I got to get to our next topic because we're running out of time. A California judge has ruled that out-of-home advertising of cannabis products is not permitted under California law if, and this is the big if, it's on a highway that crosses state lines. This rules out any kind of interstate. It rules out also any roads that are state-owned that go across state lines and become another road for another state. So this ruling highlights the growing challenges for marketers of a state-legalized product that remains federally prohibited. My question to you guys, do marketers need to just sit tight and wait for national legalization here? Because if we can believe the Biden administration, the incoming Biden administration, they seem to be signaling that they're going for that as a national legalization strategy. Or is there another path here for marketers to take? I mean, and this, we've covered this before. It's not just the interstate roads that have to worry about this. If you're a newspaper and you have subscriptions that are being delivered outside the state, you can get banged for interstate commerce of marijuana products, which is not exactly going to sit well with the federal government. So this is an ongoing problem for cannabis marketers. What's your take? Any comments on this, Mike? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting example of, usually culture moves faster than marketing. And I think in this scenario, the marketing is running too far ahead because culturally, this country isn't ready for wide open cannabis advertising on billboards. Just in general, forget about whether they cross state lines or not. And I think, the legalization fight is still happening on a state level. And even I think when national legalization happens, I think there's a lot of states and communities that are still going to be very, very sensitive to the advertising. And I think it's going to be regulated like alcohol and tobacco. And right now it's a little bit of Wild West. And it feels to me like the marketers are pushing things a little bit too fast, which may result in more regulations down the line.
Well, as a well, okay, I'm going to be the contrarian then. So, my shtick is marketing transformation. So I would never advise a marketer to sit back and wait. That is the worst possible option for any marketers. And I'm not an expert in this space, but as I was researching it, the first thing that came to mind is when you go online and you try and find knowledge, if you're kind of from the marketing capability side, you just try and learn about this area. There's not a lot actually out there. And there's definitely not a lot from the establishment industry or marketing thought leaders in this space. So that already for me says, there's a gap in the market to even understand it, to understand the landscape, to understand the complexity, and also see the opportunity. And so it's rife for innovation and for the challenger brands or the smaller brands to come through. And as I was researching this, I found one article from, I think, the sort of an interview with the CMO of Curaleaf, and what all he was talking about was marketing 101. So a lot of experiential stuff, a lot of stuff which is very local, very experiential, very focused on your local markets within state lines. So basically playing with the cards that you have and ensuring you do a great job of just showing up. A lot of channel management and B2B marketing that they're doing to ensure that their distributors are well taken care of and recognizing and rewarding them for their performance. So it's kind of back to basics marketing on a very micro level, which will ultimately scale, because I think in the US, some states in the recent election have opened up. I think New Jersey is one of them, which is, I'm in Pennsylvania, yes, near to me. So I, as a marketer, I think if you sit on the sidelines, you're going to miss out and you're going to be so far behind. Now, listen, this I
don't think Mike's suggesting that they don't market at all. I think he was just suggesting they be a little bit cautious with it.
Yeah, so I mean, there's certain
all the stuff you're saying, dude, yep, is stuff that they should be doing.
Absolutely.
Just don't put billboards on the highway, don't run TV commercials, don't
but that's the heart of the question. Do they comply? Just ignore out of home, but where out of home is a powerful tool for a product like this? I mean, it seems like, they need to be pushing the boundaries. They need to constantly be pushing the boundaries in order to make this product, the legitimacy of this product, grow in the minds of consumers, to basically lead the audience to a level of acceptance. And doesn't that mean they need to be pushing
It's happening. You got to remember that marijuana, for all intents and purposes, is a subculture right now still in this country. I mean, a lot of people smoke it, but in terms of it being a culture, right, most people can only name High Times as any kind of publication that's been friendly to marijuana for a long time. And over the years, I've been tracking this space. I've been seeing web services come up, for instance, where users are rating products and brands can come in there and promote their products to users, right? And it in look and in feel, it feels very much the same way as many other internet cultures and fandoms that have now become very, very mainstream and visible were. So there's a lot of individual entrepreneurs, and there are a lot of other people with startups who are looking to solve some of these problems in really interesting ways that are there. They're all very small right now because of these issues. And so I agree, you definitely shouldn't sit tight and wait. I do believe you need to be planting the seeds for that national legalization, because when it happens,
no pun intended.
Yeah, it's going to. When it happens, it's you're going to have to move fast, and there's already players pretty well established, at least amongst the community there, that are laying the groundwork for it. So it is happening, but in the meantime, I do think that you just, for the most part, the brand work can be done online, because most people looking to get into it go online for their information anyways. It's not something where you just walk into a store and say, give me one of those. There's a lot to learn before you even buy in, before you even become a buyer. So, there's time. And I think billboards billboards are good for, hey, here's our dispensary, we're right here, 10 miles away or around the corner. They might be good for that, but I'm not so sure they're going to be as effective for the kind of brand building that a lot of these brands who are currently making cannabis products need right now. They need to be focused more on the community and the areas where it's legal.
And education.
Yes.
I mean, most people are like, why are they, most people know the joint that they bought from some kid in homeroom back in junior year of high school. And it's like, wait, how are all these things different? There's different types of pot. Who knew this? So like they're literally at that level, and and you see it in California where there's that's what the stores do. A lot of like, this is the effect that these different things have on you, and the taste and all that. People just,
yeah, it's been eye-opening to live in a legalized state. I mean, I moved to Michigan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I moved to Michigan very recently, and it's been an interesting experience being able to. I mean, I haven't bought pot in 20 years, but because of the Parkinson's, I'm starting to like experiment with it again, just as a means of trying to, kind of calm down some of the side effects of the disease. So, I mean, it's really interesting to me how this has evolved, because it's legal here, but it's practically invisible. It's just like there's no advertising for it, there's no education, there's no outreach, and even buying pot for the first time, it felt, even though it was buy it online and show up and pick it up, it felt like a dealer showing up at your car window. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's something about it.
This is, I mean, the lens I'm bringing, and I've worked for a large CPG food company, and I remember a senior leader suggesting the potential for entering this category, and they were ostracized. And yet you think about large organizations with innovation and product safety and product development and manufacturing capabilities. There are a lot of companies who could play in this market and educate, bring safe products to market, bring it into nutrition or medication and other areas, and health and wellness type space. So there's a huge opportunity here where a lot of the potential market participants are staying on the sidelines. So when I think about the audience of this show, I'm thinking there are a lot of marketers who think, shoot, my products, my manufacturing, my company, my brands, or my brand could play in this space, but my company won't let me, or I don't know how to do it. So I just see there's a lot of potential to shift the market a lot quicker. So when I look at this, I'm thinking, that it's a taboo issue, but it's becoming more and more accepted and more legal. So this is not only an advertising and awareness communication issue. I just think, I'm not going to name brands because I don't want to get sued, but there are a lot of food brands, a lot of the nutrition brands, a lot of wellness brands, a lot of health brands who could suddenly shape and come into this market and really make it more approachable, more acceptable, and have distribution opportunities and have market clout and distribution clout and marketing savviness to actually, raise the bar here. So for me, I think, if you're a marketer listening to this thinking, you know what, I'm gonna repitch this idea. I see a huge potential here to cater for a proposition that is becoming more, as I say, more legal and more accepted. And looking at the market and looking at opportunity, I just think, wow, there's a huge marketing opportunity, a huge business opportunity. So if you're a marketer listening to this,
CBD oil, which is legal everywhere, is the hottest thing in the health and wellness industry right now.
I was going to say the reverse is absolutely happening. You look at a brand like Dosist, which has been those disposable THC and CBD vape pens, and they just put out a THC-free CBD vape pen that they're advertising nationally, that they can ship anywhere. And I looked at that and I went, that's smart branding. It's like now they have something they can advertise their company with. And if you go to the website to get more information, you're going to see all the other range of their products. So, I think there's already the smart companies in the space are figuring out ways around some of the challenges. But you're right. It's either the mainstream health and wellness companies are going to move into it, or the cannabis companies are going to start eating into their space.
Well, with that, it's time for this week's Fair, Fail, Foul. But before we get to that segment of the show, I do want to take this quick opportunity to thank my guests again and allow them to each do a shameless plug. Starting with Mike Manello, you can find him at campfirenyc.com. That's the home of Campfire, a brilliant experiential agency that has done some monumentally great work over the years. Tell us, Mike, what's going on in your world? What would you like to promote?
Thank you, Bob. We've been busy, and we do experiential, but we also do a lot of content, and we've been doing a lot more content, obviously, this last year. But we've been very, very busy, and happy to see Experience Brief starting to come through again as people get a little more optimistic about the end of next year. So CampfireNYC.com is the place to see me. I would like to promote a book that came out in October.
Yes, I forgot about that. I should have said something up front about it.
So 2 years ago, one of my one of my partners, Nick Bracci, and I created a podcast for Shudder called Video Palace, and that's available anywhere podcasts are. And we got really, really great response. And so we decided to make a book of short stories that expand on the mythological creature at the heart of the Video Palace podcast. And it came out in October, and I'm really proud of it. We've been getting really great reviews. It's available now wherever you get books, on Amazon. It's ebook, hardcover, and audiobook. So check it out. It's called Video Palace: In Search of the Eyeless Man. And if you like scary, spooky stories, you're going to love this.
That's fantastic. Yeah, congratulations on that, man.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Samuel Mani. You can find him at marketingtransform.com. That's the home of his podcast. Or you can find him, of course, at ci2.net. Am I right about that? Is it?
You are, Bob. You are. And actually building nicely on the couple of things I've mentioned, but the comment there about storytelling. That's what I'm going to shamelessly plug is my my role at CI2, which is communication through storytelling. And I've just have so much passion from helping people unleash their creativity and discover their potential. And we believe in that human connection and unlocking your abilities, your marketing skills, your productivity. And we teach how to use storytelling and minimize miscommunication and misunderstanding. So that's a superpower that we help you unleash, and we tap into neuroscience and behavioral economics to help you basically listen more effectively, be aware of your biases, and tell stories that inspire. And so that's what really excites me right now, and telling stories that inspire and helping people do that on a personal level, but obviously also on a business level, is a huge opportunity. So shamelessly plugging my time and my work at CI2. We've run a couple of virtual workshops in the last few weeks, which have gone down really, really well. So we've morphed into the virtual space and we're delivering great experiences. So reach out to me and I'd love to tell you more about it.
That sounds great. I'm really excited for you. That sounds like a really great opportunity going on over there. Last but not least, we have Alan Walk. You can find him at tvrev.com. That is the home of his media analysis company that he co-founded that is doing some monumentally great work. He's also written a book that has been well reviewed across the board for its futuristic look, or its look at the future of television, I should say, not futuristic, but yeah. Tell us what's going on in your world. What would you like to promote?
Yeah, TV Rev is also our content portal. God, I hate that word, but we run a lot of articles about the state of the industry that are there. We have a staff of people writing for us and a lot of guest posters as well. We just did a special report. We do probably 4 or 5 of those a year. This one is on the FAST, the free ad-supported streaming TV services, like Pluto, the Roku channel, Tubi, and that's a really hot and growing area of television now. We did a pretty extensive study, and you can get that on the website at tvrev.com. And that's sort of where we're at right now. We've got more stuff coming next year, so look out for it.
That stuff is fascinating to me. I mean, it's just like I'm a big Pluto user, so I know what you're talking about. These streaming platforms are getting really interesting the way they're approaching things. As for me, for more information about me or the show, visit thebeancast.com. There you can find a complete show archive. You can find out how to consult with me. And of course, you can even find out how to advertise on this program. We would love for you to sponsor us. So check it all out at thebeancast.com. And now it is time for this week's Fair, Fail, Foul, a rundown of the best and worst of advertising, marketing, and public relations from the last week. First up, I thought this was really interesting, Sam. Ralph Lauren and Snapchat partnered together to give the Polo logo an AR experience. So when you open up Snapchat, you can scan the Polo logo and you get some kind of animation, a bunch of different experiences that involve the logo. I thought this was really clever, interesting, total fan nod. I mean, you got to have the shirt to make it work. So it's driving purchase. This sounds like it's a really good idea. What do you think?
Yeah, as I saw it, I love the partnership, and obviously Snap, who would have investments in Bitmoji are trying to monetize their investment, but it seems to be done in a really interesting and engaging way. Not sure how scalable it is, but it's clearly content versus advertising, and there's actually a really nice big idea that's being brought to life here. So I see it's got legs, and it's definitely one to watch.
Now, the fail of this week goes to Facebook. Go figure. Facebook wins this so many times.
Facebook.
Yeah. Facebook metrics were once again called into question, Mike, for miscalculating the effectiveness of its conversation lift tool to the extent where they're issuing tens of millions of dollars in refunds to brands, or at least coupons for more ads to be spent on the platform. This is not going to affect them in any way, is it? I mean, as bad as this is embarrassing as this is not going to affect them at all, is it?
No, this is the data-driven future we were promised.
We know we have to try and do better.
This is what makes my blood boil. It's like, darn, it doesn't matter what they do, how they do it. I mean, there's like in 2016 they had issues with inflating video views and instant article publishers and ad reach, likes and share count. So there is a black box where they basically reporting, and then come 3 or 4 years later say oops, and then but we'll offer you a credit. They won't even give you a refund. So it's like a win-win. And so I cannot believe that the EU won't force them to open up the tools for like audit and scrutiny, because I think this is one screw up too many. So watch again, maybe not in the US, but certainly in Europe. I can imagine that they're going to get in a lot of trouble over this.
Yeah, probably. Europe is a lot more activist about this stuff. Well, this week's foul goes to the universe, Alan. I'm sorry to say, if you've not heard, Zappos' founder, is it Tony Hsieh or Tony Hsieh?
Hsieh.
I thought it was Hsieh. That's what I thought. So Tony Hsieh, who was the founder of Zappos, is dead at 46. He was in some kind of house fire. That's all that information I got. I don't know if it was his house, someone else's house, but he died of his injuries later at the hospital. Hearts go out to the family and to everybody who knew him. He was, by all accounts, just a great guy. So we feel for it. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's one of those kind of, I'm going to be deadly serious now and say, just a reminder that tomorrow isn't promised, right? And we should tell all those who we love that we love them and hug them a bit tighter. So it's kind of one of those moments you just reflect, and, anyone who loses their life. So it's just sad to hear. And just hug those that you love a bit tighter.
Yeah. Well, if you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, visit our website. Oh, sorry, I need to say I forgot to put the thing about sharing. So if you'd like to make a comment about any of these fair fouls or have a conversation about it, just use the hashtag #FairFailFoul. That's #FairFailFoul. And that does it for this week's episode of the BeanCast. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, visit our website at thebeancast.com and click on the subscribe link. If you're an Apple Podcast listener, we've also provided a direct link to our listing there, or just search for the BeanCast in the podcast directory on the Apple Podcasts app. And whichever podcast directory you use, when you subscribe, please leave us a review. Got a comment? Have a question? We'd love to hear from you. Just send your emails to beancast@gmail.com. Opening theme was performed by Joe Seibel. Closing theme by C-Jax. Thanks for listening. I'm Bob Norp. We'll be back again next week. Hope you'll join us then.
You know what I mean? It's like if it's, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. Just like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like totally like that. It's like, I don't know, like if it's, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like kind of, it just seems like it's just like almost exactly. It's like exactly. Yeah.
beans.